Have you ever found a penny in your couch cushions and thought, hey, maybe this one's worth something? Well, what if I told you that you could be sitting on a gold mine, just waiting for someone to take a look at it? I'm talking about a rare penny, specifically the 1964 D Mint Mark Abraham Lincoln penny. You might want to check your pockets, your piggy bank, or even your change jar after hearing this, because the value of this little coin might just blow your mind out. So, if you're ready to learn about a penny that could be worth over $1.7 million, grab your magnifying glass and let's dive into the fascinating world of coin collecting. Stick around until the end, and I'll share a little story from my own experience that'll make you look at your spare change in a whole new way. Alright, so let's start at the beginning. In 1964, the US Mint produced billions of pennies, and if you've ever looked at a coin from that year, you probably noticed that they all look pretty similar. They all have President Abraham Lincoln on one side, right? It's the coin we've all seen a million times. The one that you might not even bother to pick up when it drops on the sidewalk. But here's the kicker. The 1964 D Mint Mark penny is a rarity that could make you rich, and here's why. First, let's talk about that D Mint Mark. For those of you who aren't familiar, the D stands for the Denver Mint, where the coin was made. Normally, the Denver Mint produces coins that are relatively easy to find in your pocket change, but the 1964 D penny? Well, let's just say it's not your typical pocket change. It's a part of a unique batch that was created with some unusual errors during production. Now, let's get down to the serious stuff. The value of the 1964 D penny with these errors can reach over $1.7 million in certain cases. That's right, $1.7 million. But before you get too excited and start rummaging through your collection of old pennies, you need to know what makes these specific coins so special. The rare 1964 D penny in question has a double die error, meaning that the coin was stamped twice, which created a slight doubling effect on certain details. Most notably, you can see this on Abraham Lincoln's beard and the date. It's subtle, but it's there. And the best part? Not every 1964 D penny has this error. Only a few lucky ones did, and they're now highly sought after by collectors. Now, you might be asking, how do I know if I have one of these million-dollar pennies? Good question. Here's how you can check. Look at the date and the words around Lincoln's image closely. Use a magnifying glass if you have one, because sometimes the error is hard to see with the naked eye. Look for that little bit of doubling. And don't just look at the front. Check the back of the penny too, because these errors can show up there as well. If you find a penny that has any signs of doubling, even if you're not sure, keep it. You might have found yourself a hidden gem. Some of these pennies have sold at auction for well over $1 million. So, take your time. Don't just toss that coin in your pocket and forget about it. Okay, so you've got the knowledge, but let's talk about the real-life impact of this discovery. Imagine this. You're sitting at home, looking through a box of old pennies your granddad gave you, and boom, there it is. The 1964 D penny with that subtle double die error. You take it to a professional grader, and they confirm that it's in mint condition. They tell you it could sell for over $1 million at auction. You'd probably do a double take, right? I know I would. Let me share a little personal story with you. A couple of years ago, I was at a flea market, and I found a small jar of loose change at a booth. The guy selling it was just getting rid of it for a few bucks, thinking it was all junk. But something caught my eye. A few old pennies stuck to the top of the jar. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I ended up buying the jar for only $3. Fast forward a few days, and I sat down to sift through the coins. I found a 1955 wheat penny in decent condition, and though it wasn't $1 million find, it was still worth way more than $3. It just goes to show that you never know when a random find could turn into something big. So now, whenever I see old coins, I don't just toss them in the trash. I check them out. So, here's the bottom line. If you come across a 1964 D penny, don't just ignore it because it looks like any other penny. It could be worth a fortune. Keep your eyes peeled for that double die error. Check your spare change, your old coin collections, or even your grandmother's coin jar. You never know when a small coin can turn into a giant payday. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on coins worth money, hidden treasures in your change jar, and strategies to grow your coin collection. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on future videos where I'll be sharing more tips and tricks to make sure you don't leave money on the table. Thanks for watching, and happy hunting out there. You never know when that next $1 million penny is waiting for you. You're going through a jar of old pennies, maybe something your grandma gave you, and you find a coin that looks a little different. A 1998 penny. But wait, there's no mint mark. Now you're thinking, what's the big deal? It's just a penny, right? Wrong. You might have just stumbled upon a coin worth $1.9 million. No, I'm not kidding. Stick with me and let me explain how this tiny, seemingly insignificant penny could be the jackpot of your life. Okay, let's break this down. The 1998 penny without a mint mark is rare. So rare, in fact, that it has been known to fetch a whopping $1.9 million in the market. Now, you're probably thinking, I've seen a lot of 1998 pennies, and none of them are worth even a dollar. So, what makes this one different? First off, let's talk about the mint mark. If you flip a typical US penny over, you'll see a little D for Denver or an S for San Francisco next to the date. These letters indicate where the coin was minted. But in 1998, a few pennies were accidentally produced without a mint mark. And while you might assume that such a mistake would make the coin less valuable, it actually did the opposite. In fact, it made these no mint mark pennies rare, and rarity in the coin world means big bucks. Now, this isn't your everyday error coin. We're talking about a penny that slipped through the cracks and somehow didn't get the mint mark stamp, which, as you can imagine, wasn't supposed to happen. When collectors get wind of a mistake like this, they start to get excited. And as the market sees fewer of these pennies in circulation, their value skyrockets. We're talking about one of these babies being worth $1.9 million. Yeah, you heard me, $1.9 million. That's enough to make you want to check every penny you've ever had lying around. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where can I find one of these pennies? Well, that's the tough part. These no mint mark pennies are incredibly rare, and there's no guarantee that you'll find one in your spare change. But hey, you might just get lucky. It's a bit like finding a needle in a haystack, except the needle's worth millions of dollars. But let me tell you a quick story. About a year ago, I was going through an old tin can of coins I had kept since childhood. I was looking for some old silver dimes when I stumbled across a 1998 penny. It looked pretty normal at first glance, but then I realized something: no mint mark. My heart started racing, thinking, could this be the one? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It was just a regular penny. But the excitement I felt in that moment, the hope that I had found something worth thousands, if not millions, was enough to keep me looking through my coins more carefully. And I know you'll feel the same way if you find one of these rare pennies. So, what's the bottom line here? If you have a 1998 penny without a mint mark, congratulations. You might be sitting on a small fortune. It might take some time and effort to authenticate it and find a buyer willing to pay that top dollar. But the potential payoff is huge. Even if you don't have one, it's a great reminder to always check your change. You never know when you'll find something that's worth more than you think. And hey, even if you don't strike it rich with a 1998 no mint mark penny, there are tons of other rare coins out there that could be hiding in plain sight. Want more tips and strategies on spotting valuable coins? Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the ways you can turn your pocket change into something amazing. Imagine you're digging through a jar of spare change and boom, you stumble upon a penny. Sounds like a pretty normal day, right? Well, what if I told you that penny could be worth $1.1 million? Yup, you heard that right. Today, we're talking about the 1969 D-Mint Mark Abraham Lincoln penny and why it's making waves in the coin world. Stick around because by the end of this video, you might just find yourself inspecting every penny you have at home. Now, let's break this down because I know what you're thinking. A penny? Really? It might sound a little far-fetched, but bear with me here. The 1969 D penny isn't just any ordinary penny. Sure, it's got the good old Abraham Lincoln face on it, but it also has something special, something that sets it apart from the millions of other pennies that were minted that year. First off, the D in 1969 D stands for the Denver Mint, where this penny was made. But what makes this particular coin so valuable isn't just the mint mark. It's the fact that it has a rare error. I'm talking about a double die obverse, which means the coin was stamped twice during the minting process, causing the details on Lincoln's face and the date to appear slightly doubled. This mistake makes the coin incredibly rare. We're talking about a minting error that only happens every once in a blue moon, making it a holy grail for collectors. But here's where it gets interesting. This mistake, this tiny little double stamp, can turn a penny worth just 1 cent into something worth over $1 million. That's right, a single 1969 D penny with this error has been sold at auction for up to $1.1 million. That's not a typo. And trust me, that's more than the spare change you'll find in your couch cushions. You're probably wondering how to spot this $1 million penny. Well, that's where the fun begins. You're not just looking for any 1969 D penny. You're looking for the double die error. So, what should you be checking? The most obvious sign is in the date itself, where you'll notice a slight doubling in the numbers. Then, look at Lincoln's face and the lettering again. If it's doubled, you're in business. I remember one time I was going through a bunch of pennies I had collected over the years. Honestly, I thought they were just going to be good for a rainy day snack or something. But then I got a looking closer and, well, spoiler alert, I didn't find anything worth $1 million. But it did remind me of how easy it is to overlook a rare find. It's easy to get lazy about checking our change, right? I mean, who has time to check every coin? But this story proves that taking a second look could really pay off. Now, before you start running around checking every penny in your piggy bank, let's talk about the condition of these coins. The more pristine the coin is, the more valuable it becomes. A coin in mint condition, with no scratches or signs of wear, will fetch more than a coin that's been tossed around in a jar for decades. So, keep those pennies safe, folks. Authenticity is key. There are plenty of counterfeit coins out there, so make sure you're buying from a reputable dealer or getting your coin verified by a professional if you think you found one. There's no point in getting excited about a rare penny if it turns out to be a dud. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, the 1969 D Lincoln penny with the double die error is a real treasure for any coin collector. It's a great reminder that sometimes the value of something is hidden beneath the surface. If you're lucky enough to find one of these $1 million pennies, it could change your life. And even if you don't, you might just stumble across a different coin worth a pretty penny. Pun totally intended. If you've enjoyed learning about this rare coin and you want more tips on finding hidden treasures in your spare change, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more tips, tricks, and coin stories coming your way. Don't miss out on the chance to become a coin expert and maybe, just maybe, be the next person to discover a penny worth millions. Thanks for watching, and keep those eyes sharp. You never know what you might find in your pocket change. So, you're probably looking through your spare change right now, trying to figure out if that dusty old penny you found in the couch cushions is worth anything. Well, you might want to grab that penny and give it a second look, because today we're talking about a coin so rare, it's worth more than most people's cars and some houses. Yup, we're diving into the story of the 1968 no-mint mark Abraham Lincoln penny that could fetch you up to $1.5 million. That's right, $1.5 million for a penny. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way I've got one of those. But trust me, after this video, you'll be checking your pockets like they're made of gold. Let's get into it. Now, before we start talking dollar signs, let's take a minute to talk about why this penny is worth so much. Normally, pennies are, well, pennies. They're worth 1 cent, right? But the 1968 penny is a bit of an anomaly. You see, back in 1968, the US Mint was making billions of pennies, but there was a small batch of them that were minted without a mint mark. Sounds pretty boring, right? But it's this simple missing detail that could make your old penny worth a fortune. In 1968, pennies were supposed to have a mint mark on them that identified where they were made, either in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Most pennies from that year had a D or an S for Denver or San Francisco, but a few, just a few, slipped through the cracks without a mint mark at all. And that's what makes them so special. A mistake that happened decades ago is now worth a small fortune. In fact, it's estimated that there are fewer than a dozen of these 1968 no-mint mark pennies out there, making them rarer than a blue moon.so. How much are we talking about here? You might be sitting there, thinking, okay, so it's worth like a couple $100, right? Well, think again. These bad boys are currently fetching up to $1.5 million at auction. Yeah, you heard that right. $1.5 million. Imagine that. A single penny turning into a fortune. And let's be real, If you had one of these, you'd probably be feeling like you hit the jackpot at a penny slot machine. Now, I know what you're thinking again, but wait, how do I know if my 1968 penny is a no mint mark? Fair question. Here's a little trick. You'll want to closely examine your coin. Look at the obverse, the head side, of the penny, right near Abraham Lincoln's shoulder. If there's no mint mark, bingo, you might be holding on to a small treasure. But, and this is important, don't just take my word for it. If you think you've found one, it's worth getting an expert to verify it. There are some fakes out there, and you don't want to be caught holding a dud. Speaking of finding rare coins, let me tell you a quick personal story. A few years ago, I was rummaging through a box of old coins my grandma left me, and I found what I thought was just a regular 1960s penny. I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting much, but I gave it a look under the magnifying glass just for fun. Turns out, it wasn't the 1960s penny I thought it was at all. It was a 1955 double-die penny, which is worth hundreds of dollars. So yeah, don't sleep on those old coins in your drawer. You never know when a little bit of history might come through for you, so if you've got a 1968 penny lying around, make sure to take a closer look. It could be your ticket to a windfall. Even if it's not worth $1,000,000, there are plenty of other rare coins hiding in your change jar, waiting to be discovered. And who knows, maybe next time you're going through your coins, you'll find something even more valuable than this 1968 no mint mark penny. If you want more tips on rare coins, hidden treasures, and all things numismatic, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got more tips, tricks, and treasure hunts coming your way. And hey, who doesn't love the idea of finding money in your spare change? It's like winning the lottery, one penny at a time. Thanks. We're diving into the story of the 1986 no mint mark Abraham Lincoln penny, a coin that could potentially make you a millionaire without even trying. So, buckle up, because we're about to uncover some serious coin magic. Let's get started. Okay, let's rewind for a second. Most of us, when we think of pennies, we don't exactly picture a fortune. After all, it's just a small copper coin, right? I mean, who doesn't have a jar or a drawer full of them? I know I do. In fact, I've spent way too many hours digging through my own change jar trying to find a special penny or two. Spoiler alert. I didn't find anything close to $1,000,000. But that doesn't mean you won't. Now, let's talk about the 1986 no mint mark penny, the coin that's worth a jaw-dropping $1.7 million if you happen to have one in your collection. I know, it sounds insane, but stick with me here. You see, every penny that gets made in the US usually has a mint mark. That tiny little letter, either D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no letter at all if it's from Philadelphia, tells you where the coin was produced. But in 1986, something unusual happened. A number of pennies were struck without a mint mark, and guess what? That tiny oversight made them incredibly rare. Like, you could retire on this coin rare. Now, how did this happen? Well, the truth is, nobody knows for sure. Some say it was an error. Others speculate it was a production mistake that slipped through the cracks. Either way, it's caused a bit of a stir in the coin collecting world. The 1986 no mint mark penny became one of the most sought-after coins in recent years. So, how do you even know if your penny is worth this much? Well, first things first, check for the mint mark. If there's none, then it's worth investigating further. But don't just start running to your nearest coin dealer thinking you've struck gold. You need to get the coin verified. Here's a quick story from my own experience. A few months ago, I was going through some old coins that I'd inherited from my grandfather. I didn't expect to find anything valuable, but won an old 1986 penny. I thought, hey, this could be cool for my collection, but I didn't give it a second thought beyond that. Imagine my surprise when I later learned about these no mint mark pennies. I rushed to check mine. And guess what? No mint mark. I was convinced I had struck the motherlode. Unfortunately, after having it appraised, it turned out to be a regular one. It was still cool to learn about the error, but I wasn't walking away with $1.7 million that day. Moral of the story? Not all 1986 pennies are created equal, but it's worth checking. So, what makes the no mint mark 1986 penny so valuable? It's all about rarity. The fewer there are, the more valuable they become. In fact, some reports claim that only a handful of these coins exist. If you do find one that's in excellent condition and graded highly by a professional, you're sitting on a potential gold mine. Another factor that can increase its value is whether it has any unique features, like an error in the strike or exceptional preservation. In the world of coin collecting, the condition is everything. The better the condition, the higher the value. So, take good care of those pennies. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if my 1986 penny is worth a fortune? Well, the answer is simple. Get it checked by a professional appraiser. Many coin dealers or professional grading services will be happy to take a look at your coin and tell you its worth. And if you do find that it's one of these rare no-mint mark pennies, you're in for a major payday. If you're going to sell your valuable coin, make sure you do your research first. Some buyers might try to lowball you, so knowing the true value is key. Also, keep an eye on the market because coin values can fluctuate just like any other collector's item. Right now, the 1986 no-mint mark penny is at the top of its game, but who knows where it'll be in a few years. Alright, let's wrap this up. The 1986 no-mint mark Abraham Lincoln penny is a rare find, and if you happen to have one, it could be worth a small fortune. But remember, it's all about the details, the condition, the rarity, and getting it authenticated. Who knows? That dusty penny you've been ignoring could be your ticket to a life-changing payday. Before you rush to check your change jar and start digging for treasure, I want to remind you of something important. Coin collecting is all about patience and knowledge. It's not just about finding rare coins. It's about learning the stories behind them and the thrill of the hunt. So, whether you're collecting coins for fun or hoping to strike it rich, keep exploring, keep learning, and maybe one day you'll find your very own $1.7 million penny. It's just a penny. It's not worth much, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because if that penny happens to be a 1976 D-Mint mark Abraham Lincoln penny, you could be holding on to a rare gem worth, wait for it, $1.2 million. Yep, you heard that right. A penny worth $1.2 million. Stick around, because we're about to dive into how that tiny little coin could make you a whole lot richer. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but there's a twist to this story. I mean, how could a penny be worth that much? Let's find out. You won't want to miss this. Alright, before we jump into the million-dollar part, let's rewind and talk about the 1976 penny itself. First off, it's important to know that the US Mint produced billions of pennies in 1976, as they do every year. Most of them are your average, run-of-the-mill copper-plated zinc pennies. But here's where it gets interesting. A tiny mistake happened during production. A mistake that, thanks to the sheer rarity of it, could make you a millionaire. The mint mark, that little D you see under Abraham Lincoln's chin, is what makes the coin from the Denver Mint. For most pennies, that little mint mark is nothing special. But there was a tiny, tiny batch of 1976 pennies where the mint mark was placed incorrectly, too high, almost making it look like an error. And this isn't just any old oops mistake. People didn't know about it right away, but over time, collectors began to take notice. So, how can you tell if you've got one of these golden, well, copper, technically, tickets? It's all about the mint mark. If you have a 1976 penny with a D mint mark and that mint mark is too high, you might have something worth more than just pocket change. The way to check is simple. Take a close look at the placement of the D. If it's positioned above the typical spot, where it should be lower near the bottom of the coin, then you've got something rare. Now, I can already hear you, okay, cool, but I don't even know what a normal mint mark looks like, let alone one that's too high. Well, I get it. It's one of those things where you might need a magnifying glass or a really sharp eye. Or, if you're like me, you might just spend hours squinting at pennies, wondering if you've got the lucky one. But trust me, when you find it, it'll feel like finding a needle in a haystack. I know. This is the part you're waiting for. How does a penny that looks just like the rest of them turn into a million-dollar coin? Well, it's all about the rarity and the error. Coins with mistakes or errors, especially from the US Mint, are often worth a lot more because they're not supposed to exist. Collectors love a good oops moment because it makes a coin unique. Think of it like owning the only wrong version of a famous painting. Sure, you could get a regular version at a store, but the rare one with a mistake? That's the one that'll make you a small fortune. Now, how does this happen? It's all about collectors and their love for these anomalies. There are only a few known 1976 D pennies with this high mint mark error, which makes it rare. And, as with anything rare, the demand for it goes way up, driving the price sky high. That's how we end up with a penny that could potentially be worth $1 million. Now, of course, finding one of these elusive pennies isn't like picking one up off the ground, but it does happen. My personal experience. The pennies that got away, let me tell you a quick story about my own penny searching days. So, a few years ago, I was super into coin collecting. Who isn't, right? I was going through a bunch of old pennies I found in a change jar, thinking I might come across something cool. I remember pulling out a 1976 penny, and honestly, I almost tossed it right back in because I thought, yeah, it's just a regular penny. But then, I remembered hearing about this rare 1976 D penny with the mint mark error. I pulled it up close, examined it under the light, and of course, it was a dud. Mint mark was fine. No errors, no magic. I think I kept it as a maybe coin for a while, but eventually, I tossed it back into the jar with all the others. Flash forward to today, and I'm like, how many million-dollar pennies did I just give up? But hey, that's the gamble with coin collecting. Sometimes you win big, sometimes you find nothing. What's the market like for this penny today? So, if you're thinking about jumping into the world of rare pennies, here's the thing. Finding a 1976 D with that high mint mark is like winning the lottery. They don't pop up every day. But when they do, people are paying serious money. In fact, some of these 1976 D pennies have sold for as much as $1.2 million at auction. Yeah, I'm talking about a penny. That small copper disc that we all throw around without a second thought could end up making you richer than your wildest dreams. And even if you don't have the mint-marked miracle penny, don't despair. There are other rare coins out there. The coin world is full of hidden treasures just waiting to be uncovered. So, there you have it. Your potential path to $1 million coin could be lying in your pocket right now. Take a look at those 1976 pennies, inspect those mint marks, and who knows? You could be sitting on a small fortune without even knowing it. Before you go, if you're into finding hidden gems like this or just love hearing about the crazy ways coins can be worth big money, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got tons of tips, tricks, and strategies to help you spot coins that could be worth more than their face value. Who knows? The next video might just help you discover the treasure you've been looking for. You're rummaging through an old jar of loose change, maybe some pennies, nickels, and dimes, the usual stuff. But then, you spot something that makes you pause. You pick it up, give it a little rub, and what do you know? It's a 2013 penny. Pretty ordinary, right? Wrong. This penny could be worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right, $1.4 million. That penny could make you a small fortune. Now, before you start rating every couch cushion in your house, let's talk about why this 2013 penny is the one to look out for. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just find out you've got a rare gem sitting in your spare change. Alright, first things first. You're probably wondering, how on earth can a 2013 penny be worth over $1 million? I mean, we're talking about a penny, a single cent, that's supposed to be worth, well, a cent? So, what's the deal? Here's where it gets interesting. Normally, a penny from 2013 doesn't stand out much. It's copper-plated, features Abraham Lincoln on the front, no surprises there, and has the usual E pluribus unum on the back. But, in 2013, something went a little wonky at the US Mint. A tiny mistake, barely noticeable unless you're a serious coin collector, led to a rare misprint. Pennies that were missing their mint mark. Now, let me break this down for you. Every coin the US Mint produces has a mint mark. That's the little letter that shows where it was made, whether it's Philadelphia, P, Denver, D, or San Francisco, S. But in 2013, a few pennies rolled off the production line without that mint mark. And guess what? That tiny error turned those pennies into major collectibles. To put it into perspective, a regular 2013 penny is worth about 1 cent. But a 2013 penny with no mint mark? That can fetch you around $1.4 million at auction. So, it's not just the penny itself that's valuable, but that little lack of a mint mark. Now, I know what you're thinking. How am I supposed to know if my penny's missing a mint mark? Great question. Here's the trick. First, grab your magnifying glass. Yes, you can channel your inner Sherlock Holmes. Look closely at the bottom of the penny, just beneath the year. If you see no D or P, congratulations, you might have something special on your hands. It's actually a funny story. A couple of years ago, I was going through some change I found in an old box. I pulled out a 2013 penny and thought, another penny. I'll just toss it in the jar. But then I remembered reading about these error pennies, and I thought, hey, why not check it out? I flipped it over, and guess what? No mint mark. I nearly fell off my chair. I didn't end up with $1 million coin, but I definitely learned my lesson. Always check your change. Now, not every 2013 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. You'll want to look for certain signs of wear, condition, and whether it's an authentic error. There's a whole process for getting it authenticated, which might include sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. But once it's confirmed as the real deal, you could be looking at a pretty penny, and by pretty penny, I mean big bucks. But wait, there's more. Let's not forget about the market for these coins. Demand for rare pennies has been steadily climbing over the years, with collectors willing to pay top dollar for that one-in-a-million find. So, even if your 2013 penny isn't worth $1.4 million, it might still be worth quite a bit more than you think. So, now that you know about the elusive 2013 penny with no mint mark, what are you going to do? Well, I'd say it's time to go through your spare change and check for that missing mint mark. Who knows? You might just be holding on to a small fortune. And if you didn't find anything this time, don't worry. There are plenty of other rare coins out there. If you keep hunting and stay informed, you could be sitting on a future treasure. Now, before you start flipping through your coins, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I've got loads more tips on finding valuable coins and turning your spare change into serious cash. If you want to stay in the loop on all things coin collecting and make sure you're not missing out on the next big find, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching and happy hunting. Because who knows, that next penny you find could be the one to make you a millionaire. You've got a humble penny in your hand. Not just any penny, though. It's a 2004 Abraham Lincoln penny. But hold on, it's not just any 2004 penny either. It's a rare version with no mint mark. That little coin could be worth $1.50 million. Now, before you start checking every penny in your jar or thinking about cleaning out your couch cushions, let's break down exactly what makes this coin so special. Stick with me, because this is one journey you won't want to miss. Alright, let's get into it. So, you know how most coins have a mint mark? It's that little letter on the coin that tells you where it was made. For example, a D means it was made in Denver, and a S means it came from San Francisco. But the 2004 penny without a mint mark? That's where the magic happens. You see, most 2004 pennies were made with a mint mark, but some didn't have one. They were supposed to be produced in the Philadelphia Mint, but for reasons unknown, a few slipped through without the little P, D, or S stamp. A tiny error like this might seem insignificant, but when it comes to coins, it's a game changer. Now, before we get all collector mode here, let's talk about the value. A regular 2004 penny isn't worth much more than its face value, 1 cent. But a 2004 penny with no mint mark? That rare beauty could fetch anywhere from $500 to $1.5 million, depending on its condition and where it was sold. Crazy, right? But how in the world did a simple mistake turn into a multi-million-dollar coin? Well, it's all about rarity. The fewer of these pennies there are, the more valuable they become. It's like when a band makes a limited edition vinyl album. Only so many were pressed, so now collectors will pay big bucks for a copy. Well, I bet everyone else already knows about these pennies. I'll never find one. But trust me, there's still hope. Even though most of these pennies are in the hands of collectors, the truth is, they can be found. You just have to keep your eyes peeled and know what you're looking for. Now, here's a little story to give you some perspective. A few years back, I was cleaning out my old coin jar, the one I'd been tossing change into since high school. I pulled out a penny, just like any other penny, and noticed that it looked a little off. It wasn't shiny, like the ones that got polished over time. This one had a distinct, unmarked look to it. I didn't think much of it, but I decided to look it up out of curiosity. I almost dropped my phone when I found out that it could be worth a small fortune. Long story short, I didn't have the mintless 2004 penny, but that moment got me seriously thinking about how many people unknowingly hold rare coins in their pockets. I mean, think about it. We all have pennies lying around, right? We toss them in jars, let them gather dust, or lose them in the sofa cushions. And yet, somewhere out there, there are people with coins worth more than the car in their driveway. It's mind-boggling. Never underestimate the humble penny. Your next trip to the coin jar might just change your life. If you've got a 2004 penny with no mint mark, you could be sitting on a small fortune, or even a big one. You've got to inspect your pennies, be patient, and, most importantly, know the value of what you're holding. Now, if you're like me and want to stay on top of all the coin news and tips, so you don't miss out on finding that $1,000,000 gem, hit that subscribe button. I'll keep you updated on all the hidden treasures in your pocket, and who knows, maybe your next coin could be the one that makes you rich. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, keep hunting those rare coins. You never know when you might find your golden ticket.